All right, possession. This one goes along with closing and funding. Well, it should
It
go
should
along with
anyway.
closing and funding. What does that mean? Upon closing and funding, or according to a temporary residential lease form promulgated by the Texas Real Estate Commission.
So what that is saying is that the buyer can either take possession at closing and funding, and funding is important, or the buyer will take possession per the lease, whether that is a buyer's temporary residential lease or a seller's temporary residential
Yeah,
lease.
how often do you recommend buyers' temporary residential leases?
I never recommend them. Never.
Why?
I shouldn't say never, but rarely. There's
There's some circumstances where you're not going to have a choice.
You're not going to have a choice, and absolutely. And a lot of buyers will try to weave their sad stories to the seller and to get them to let them move in early. Just remember that if the property does not close, then the seller would have to go through the requirements based on the city and the county to evict them.
Yeah, yeah. And I will tell you, it is not a fun and easy process.
No,
in my previous office, we had this issue come up, and it took the person about 11 months to finally close on the property, because there were things that kept coming up on their end, and once they're in there, it's a lot harder to get them out.
There's a lot of ways for the buyer to
you
extend
can't just
that
put
lease.
the house back on the market in the same way you had before, because now you have a tenant, and you're based upon your showing times are based upon when the tenant can now show the property. And keep in mind, the tenant wanted to buy the property, they didn't qualify, they're probably not going to be too happy about that.
That's right.
So if you've got a situation where you need to do a buyer's temporary residential lease, come and talk to us. We want to make sure that you're covered, and we want to make sure that we're directing you in the best way possible.
Absolutely.
So you would just need to check one of those boxes in there for upon closing and funding, or according to the residential temporary lease.
And then that, just remember what's highlighted here. It says consult your insurance agent prior to the change of ownership and possession, because insurance coverage may be limited or terminated. So whenever the seller closes on the property, remind them to transfer their homeowner's insurance into tenant insurance if the seller is staying in the property.
Correct.
Even if it's an hour.
And the buyer needs to have dwelling fire coverage during that time, because they don't actually own the possessions, they only own the dwelling itself.
That's right.
And if your buyer has gone, if your seller lives somewhere other than the area and you have the listing, it's a good thing to encourage them to get dwelling fire coverage on their home, unless they're actually living there, because insurance companies, most of them have a clause about it. If you're not living there but you have stuff there, many of the times insurance companies won't cover the stuff because you haven't actually been living there.
That's right.
So it will default to a dwelling fire coverage. So consult your insurance person about that, and know that there are ways that insurance companies find to get out of certain situations.
Absolutely.
So,
if there's a way, they will.
exactly.